Technical research, primary and secondary research. Technical research. The work in this PowerPoint presentation has to do with the stages in the writing process that correspond to choosing a topic and gathering information. In order to start working on the capstone project for English 32-36, which is to create a website using a variety of different online tools, it's first necessary to make sure that you've chosen a topic that you feel comfortable with and that you're able to get sufficient information to be able to inform your audience about the environmental issue or problem that you're interested in dealing with. The purpose of this website is primarily to inform your audience about an environmental problem and persuade them to take action to solve or reduce the scope of the problem. This PowerPoint presentation will focus on the following topics. First of all, it will focus on helping you to explore, define, and select a topic for your website and final project. It will explain what primary and secondary research are and will help you to distinguish between the two. It will also describe what an annotated bibliography is and give you hints for creating one. It will also briefly describe Assignment 5, Topic Exploration, the one that will help you or will demonstrate that you have explored or gone through the process of gathering information on different topics and selecting one that you feel you would be interested in pursuing more research on. And Assignment 6, which is compiling what you might say, a database or a list of sources of information that you have gathered about the topic that you are interested in examining. The purpose of this slide is to describe what primary and secondary research is and how you can distinguish between the two of them. Primary research occurs when an individual or a group of individuals develops a research plan or model, gathers the data, and interprets it. Primary research can include interviewing people, conducting surveys, doing laboratory work, going out into the field and observing and or gathering information or data, and personal observation. A great example of a researcher who did groundbreaking primary research in the early 20th century was Jean Piaget. He made lasting contributions to the field of child development when he observed the development of his children from infancy to adulthood. Based on his personal observation and painstaking note-taking, he was able to formulate theories about how children develop that are still used today. Secondary research is when you look at other people's primary research. Secondary research includes bibliographies, which are lists of possible sources of information in print or on computer databases. Periodical indexes. These indexes are lists of journals and magazine articles by subject. Many times you could go into a library and get these fat volumes, and they would list all the articles that have come out of popular journals such as Time magazine, Newsweek magazine, Scientific America. All of these are what are considered popular journals. However, you could also find indexes such as chemical abstracts, which contain all the scholarly or academic journal articles that have been published in a month or a year, so that these indexes were a way of gathering in one place a list of everything, all the primary, many times it was primary research or secondary research that had been conducted by other people. Newspaper indexes are also indexes or groups of articles published by different newspapers. The New York Times used to have the New York Times Index. I still don't know if they do. Now you can go online and do an online search of all the articles that have been published in the New York Times newspaper since the early 20th century. Obviously, secondary research involves looking at books that have been published on a specific topic, scholarly journals that have been published, newspapers, reference books such as encyclopedias, dictionaries, directories, government reports, and company reports, depending upon where you're working or who you're researching. The fact of the matter is that nowadays a lot of this information is now found online, and in the following slides we'll be able to see how we can search for sources of information that are online. One of the most common types of primary research is that of interviewing. Interviewing basically consists of asking people questions. And while it might seem like it's a very easy way of gathering information, there is an art and a skill to carrying out successful and informative interviews. I have put a link below to Purdue's online writing lab where you can get more information about the different kinds of interviews and how to develop them and carry them out. But I'll briefly mention something about each of the 4 kinds of interviews that I have written about or placed on the screen. First of all, there's the face-to-face interview. I often would have students interview their professors, for example. Professors are experts in their field of study, and we have a number of professors at this university who have spent a lot of time conducting primary research and secondary research about environmental issues. So many times I'd have students find a professor that they feel would give them valuable information about certain topics and interview them. These are called face-to-face interviews. It means sitting down with that person and talking to them on a one-to-one basis. However, it's not always possible to meet with people face-to-face, so that telephone interviews are often a very valuable way of gathering information by asking questions of a person or persons. The fact of the matter is, though, that nowadays we have online ways of teleconferencing, such as Skype and WebEx, which allows us to actually talk to people in a more face-to-face way. Email interviews also are common. You send an email to a person and that email contains a series of questions. You can also chat or send text messages and interview people as well. The fact of the matter is that if there's a method of communication between one or more groups of people, they can be used to interview, ask questions, and gather information. Another form of primary research that is commonly used is that of the survey. Surveying is used to discover what a large amount of people think about a particular issue or how a group of people report their behavior. Whereas an interview is done on a one-to-one or one-to-two basis. In other words, you interview one person, or maybe you might interview 2 people at the same time. A survey can be done with hundreds, even thousands of people, in which they are asked a series of questions. The same questions are asked of a large group of people. Surveys can also be done on a large range of topics and can be conducted relatively easily. They can also be analyzed easily through computers or scanners, optic scanners. I'm sure that you have taken part in surveys before. As a matter of fact, the Cuestionario de Opinión Estudiantil, or the COE, which is a form that you fill out about your professors, is a survey. Going into a laboratory, and unfortunately, there's so many different kinds of laboratory work. It all depends upon what your field of study is. If you're a doctor, you do certain kinds of lab work. If you're a chemist, you do other kinds of lab work. If you're a geologist, you do other kinds of lab work. If you're an engineer, it all depends upon what your field of study or what your profession is. But laboratory work means different things to different fields. The same thing with field work. It's not the same thing to be a geologist, to be a mechanical engineer, to be a civil engineer, or to be a doctor when you do field work. The same thing of personal observation. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago Jean Piaget and the kinds of work he did in the field of child psychology. But all of these methods have one purpose, and that is to gather data that can then be interpreted and conclusions drawn about the subject or the subjects of the research. Secondary research has to do with doing research on other people's primary research. Most researchers, when they do research, publish their research in some form or the other. In order to be able to find people's published research, you have to go into sources of information such as the ones that I mentioned below. I didn't mention graduate theses and dissertations, but I would like to mention that in this university we have doctoral and graduate programs that we involve students in all kinds of primary research. As a matter of fact, in order to graduate with a master's degree or a PhD, it is a requirement that you do some sort of primary research. So these theses and dissertations are always published, and our university has them in the library, the physical book-bound form of the dissertation or thesis, or you can go online into the Colegio's website, the library website, and find out what primary research students at the Colegio have done. Most secondary research is done online. The University of Puerto Rico here at Mayagüez has a website where you can do searches, just like you would do a Google search. You can go into the portal of the UPRM library and choose what kinds of databases you would like to access, type in keywords, and come up with hopefully a list of results of different kinds of research, both primary and secondary, that have been done on a specific topic. This slide shows you the portal of the UPRM library. This slide shows you what it looks like when you access the university's general library online catalog. Again, it's like doing a Google search, but a search of what sources of information the university has available for students. So you type in a keyword and you get results. A list of books, journals, periodicals that are available at the library. This screen demonstrates the portal, or the homepage, to the many databases that the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez campus has for you to search. ProQuest, for example, is one of the most popular, and there are many different ProQuest databases for you to search, all depending upon your field of study. In this